have a lot of things to tell about. You must give some sort of message to humanity, which you have not fully figured out yet. However, you almost feel obligated to continue communicating, whether through talking, writing, or using media. So there it is, Mercury retrograde. Stick it. We're going to keep
We're
on
doing
going.
it, really.
Sorry, listeners.
We're
We
doing
are
what
here
our
for messages.
purpose on this planet is. We're sending a message to humanity. Let's
Yeah.
go. What's good, everybody? Welcome to Cosmic Connect. I'm Frenchie,
And I'm
and
Blue.
this, what's good?
We're here to talk about connecting consciousness.
Connecting consciousness, connecting to each other, connecting to the stars, and
Yeah,
bringing it all
sorry, I froze
together.
there still. But we're going to talk about the first things that we really had in common and how this all was born.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that we had in common was our Mayan calendar. It would be our day sign, our day
Yes, it
sign.
is.
So there's a day
Yes, it
sign,
is.
your tone, your Trecana. I think that's how you say that. And I think that's the three major signs. You also have a tree of life, so there's much more to it, just like astrology.
Yes.
But I guess you have your big three.
Yes, like they give you a chart of like 9, right? There's
Yeah.
like 9 main things that you are, but there's the 3 like in the middle that I think those are the most important ones.
And I'll have the Mayan website linked. So if you would like to check out your own, you can
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
So our day sign was wind. What was your
Winds. We are
galactic
both
tone?
winds. My galactic tone is 4, stability.
Ooh,
What's yours?
I'm 10. What is 10 again?
Ooh.
For manifestation.
Ooh. I like that.
I think that that's
So what
very
does that mean for
true.
you? What does it say that means?
Well, I've always said that I've manifested my entire life. Like, I manifested Jeremy. Like, I did not, when I met Jeremy, I did not want a relationship at all. Like, not
Mm,
even in the slightest. And I tried so hard to avoid it. But the more we got to know each other, because we were friends, the more we got to know each
mhm.
other, I was like, oh shit. Like, I had wrote a list when I was a kid of just all
Mm.
these detailed things that I wanted in my future husband because I thought that was the only thing you could have.
Ooh.
I didn't know that I liked girls or that you could do that. So I wrote this huge long list of everything that I
Uh-huh.
wanted in a man and
Mhm.
everything. Dark hair, two different eyes, but not in color like I wrote. So there was some things that I got,
Ooh.
but not the way I wrote them. Like I wanted them to have two different eye colors. He actually has two different eye pupil dilations. Like one's a little bit bigger than the
Oh.
other because he had an eye injury where he got a baseball to the eye. So from that, it's a little more dilated than the other. So
Whoa. That's
when I
that's like
first
pretty dope.
realized, yeah, when I first realized he had different eyes, at that point it was like I had already had other things that was like confirming that thing I wrote in my notebook as a kid. So
Oh
yeah,
shit.
manifestation makes so much sense.
You dreamed your mans into existence.
I don't know about that. He's 360
Blood.
days older than me, but I definitely manifested him into my life for sure.
Yes. I mean, I feel like both are always happening at the same time. Like it's always going in both directions.
True.
Oh,
Yeah. What was your
it's
galactic
Mercury
tone?
retrograde. I don't know what's happening. Okay. So my tone is for stability,
Hmm. How does that make you
healing,
feel?
understanding, contemplation, stability, comfort. When I'm reading these, it to me it feels like Cancer. Like it feels like Cancer energy. It feels like my moon sign energy having, and I believe that off the top, I believe that Cancer is like rules the fourth. So four is a Cancer vibration, and what it's saying from all these adjectives, it says like healing, understanding, contemplation, stability, comfort, form, like that homey type of energy that like that Cancer gives me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's that's what it's giving me. That's what it's giving me, and it says the tone of stability, balance, and harmony. I think that's beautiful.
Do you have a good, are you good at like always being like in a stable, like you never really have come off as a like a,
No.
every once in a while we both spiral, but you
No.
never really come
Mhm.
off as unstable to me in any of our conversations. But
It is a balance, and I think that that's one of my biggest lessons is like I think I said this last episode too. I feel like balance is just one of the biggest things in my life, and I was just reading actually about my moon sign today, where it's like I was born on a full moon, so it's the sun being in opposition to the moon. That's what makes it a full moon, and
mhm,
so in my life there's like these things that are in opposition, and it's a huge like lesson slash thing just for me to get under control in my life is like just going between the extremes of things and like learning to balance between the poles of
yeah,
that major opposition because it's like the head and the heart and like my wants versus my needs. Like sometimes it may look like I'm not in balance because it's like zoop. So
mhm, yeah, the duality of it all.
the duality, that's like a
Yeah,
huge theme, huge theme of my life. And so it's
I feel
interesting
that.
when I read this that it's like, okay, all right, because our both of our day sign is the wind. Okay.
Yes. Oh, and then let's just mention our last one, and then we'll go back and we'll talk a little bit more about our one that we have in common. So then the last
Oh yeah.
sign would be
Okay.
your Trecana sign,
Trecana sign. Mm-hmm.
and I have Cain. Says the personality is its personality is popular, knowledgeable, successful, and talented. A person who fights for principles, responds to all challenges. And I almost couldn't contain myself. I'm dying laughing because I literally fought for the principles of being a college student and being treated like a high school student when I was in college this last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like dying laughing because I'm like, wow, I feel
It's very
so
accurate for you.
seen.
It is very accurate for you.
Yeah.
That's
What's
funny.
yours?
Wait, can you say what was the name of yours again? I'm so sorry. Like,
You're okay. I think
I
it's the
think that.
Tricana sign, is how
Yeah.
you say it. And I have
Mm-hmm.
Cain.
Okay. This
Cane.
is cane.
Like
Like
yeah,
a cane. Like you bash somebody with a cane.
like sugar
Being an old
cane.
person.
Yeah, cane.
Sugar cane. Cane. Ooh. Oh, interesting. It's like power. It's like a staff of power.
Yeah, I think that
Very similar.
would that be like similar to maybe wands?
Yeah, like commanding type of
Yeah.
energy. I'm getting like big action taker from
Well, with
that.
it being I don't really feel like I'm popular. But I always feel like
I
they
feel like you're
use that
popular.
as a synonym of, like
Social.
magnetic, like somebody that just really
Mhm.
like people maybe want to be like
Charismatic.
them, or like they try to be like the best person, like they try to be that pinnacle. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I feel like in a
Mhm.
lot of like older things, they always use popular, and it's like, what is that? What is that? That word has
Right.
been
It's a
changed
very
for us.
yeah. It holds a
So
lot
it's
of
just,
weight, I think, to like yeah, it just holds a lot of weight, I think, from like social group things. Like it's a
yeah,
very interesting specific thing. But I feel like literally the word popular just means many people like you.
yeah.
That's really just the root of it. So I feel like that's true for you. I would say that,
Yeah, I
the people who know
guess.
you like you. I mean, I don't know. The people who I
I mean,
know
I'm
who know
likable,
you
I
like
think.
you.
I would like
You're
to
very
say that
likable. I think I don't know, like sounds accurate to me.
yeah, I guess it's just that society's stigma of being popular, why I'm just like,
Yeah, you're
I'm
like,
not really
no way.
popular.
I know, and that's exactly what makes you actually popular. I think is like not just being popular to be this weird like stereotype of being popular. You're just naturally popular. It's part of it's your Trecana
Yeah,
sign.
I'm
I don't.
down with
I
that.
wish I knew more about what all these things actually like mean. You know.
Yeah, we'll have to, if we really want to dig into it, we could always do another episode just strictly on this.
Yes, like we'll put it on the list. We'll put it on the list. We got a growing list of future episodes, and I'm really excited to dig more into this because I feel okay. Wait, can we do
I
a quick
barely
shout out
scratched the
to
surface on this one for sure.
yes, and yes, can we do a quick shout out to Jackie because
Oh
Jackie is the
yeah.
one who put us on.
Yeah, Hello Gaines. I'll
Hello,
tag
gang.
her in the episode. But yes, absolutely. She's the one that told us about this
She put us on. So this is like a newer modality of self for both of
to
us. But I
us.
think when both of us read about this for the first time, like it was like we were both like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
this is good. This is a good, very accurate thing."
So what was yours?
Oh, mine is Storm.
Oh.
Storm, which is young and vigorous, lively, friendly, and helpful, has an important place in society, very versatile, a good student and teacher, about healing and purification. A good student and teacher about healing and purification. Lively, friendly, talkative, vigorous, helpful. Important place in society. That's a very interesting combination.
Yeah.
Healing and purification. That's cool. I don't know.
I
Would
feel
you
like
say
it
that
suits you
sounds like
too.
accurate for me?
Yeah. I feel like storms like command presence. Like you
Mhm.
know that there's a storm happening. Like I feel like when
Mm.
you drop a voice memo in a chat, people are like, "Oh, Frenchie has something to
Oh.
say." Like so, yeah, I think that's very accurate for you. Totally.
There's a storm a brewing, baby.
It was funny. Jeremy actually used storm before we started this episode. He's like, "Do you and
Really?
Frenchie go silent before the storm?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Have you guys not talked in a little bit?" And I was like, "It's probably been a couple hours." I was like,
Yeah.
"But I haven't even looked at my phone."
Yes.
So,
That's how I was too.
simulation.
That's cool. I mean, that was a premonition. Mhm.
Yeah, right. I've always said
Mhm.
his family has powers. Um,
Also, it runs in the family.
Yeah, but they're religious, so they don't
Mm.
know. I it's crazy. They have some really interesting talents or gifts from God, as they call it, and and that's fine. It's a perfect way to call it. Gift from God, source,
Mhm.
whatever. Like
Yes.
they
Yes.
definitely
I
have some
love that.
talents. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
awesome.
That's so cool.
Um,
And I feel like that does relate to what we're going to be talking about heavily because I feel, well, we're going to talk about it, but we're going to talk about what are star seeds later on in the
yeah.
episode. And stay tuned because DNA is very important for what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah,
It simply is. We're
totally.
going to be talking about all this, I think every topic that we're covering today,
They all
it
blend
does
together.
relate to DNA. So
Oh, totally.
that's the fam. That's the fam.
Do we want to try to
Retrograde.
talk about our main one that we had in common of the Mayan real quick before we switch over to the
Yes,
starseed
yes.
conversation?
Absolutely, and this is just our first intro. Then we're gonna pull some cards and do a little,
Oh, do you want to?
open
Yeah, well,
everything up
let's finish
further.
this up and we'll do that.
So we got wind.
So the personality of that is talkative, mental, agile, intelligent, and versatile, idealistic and romantic, fashion
Mm,
conscious, or artist.
they
I
sun. What could describe us better?
the mental part could be taken a little crazy. Woo!
Mental. We're fucking mental. I mean, that's already is. Nah, but like mental. I think that's like
No, I
what
think
I
it's like
love about it.
we think a
Yes,
lot.
and I think it just indicates a certain like balance between like the head and the heart, because like the other, if we're talking about chakras, I'm thinking like mental would be like a crown chakra. Agile is like feels like a root chakra type of thing, because it's like it's a body thing. Intelligent and versatile, but back to the mind. um Idealistic and romantic, that's giving me like heart chakra vibes. And then like fashion conscious or artist is giving me like sacral chakra vibes. It's like it's one sign, but it feels like it relates to many different parts of the body, you know what I mean?
I really like the
Very
first
imaginative
sentence
out.
of this description of this.
Mhm.
It says imagination, inspiration, messages, and communication are the key concepts in the life of a wind.
I
As the
love
voice,
that.
yeah, yeah, it's so good.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Are you kidding me?
As the voice is carried in the air by the wind, you have a lot of things to tell about. You must give some sort of message into humanity which you have not fully figured out yet. However, you almost feel obligated to continue communicating, whether through talking, writing, or using media. So there it is, Mercury retrograde. Stick it. We're going to keep
We're
on
doing
going.
it, bitch.
Sorry, listeners.
We're
We
doing
are
what
here
our
for messages.
purpose on this planet is. We're sending a message to humanity. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Can we just copy? Oh, we can't copy and paste. That'd be plagiarism. But that's our bio, everyone.
A
It just
message
gets
to
better and better.
humanity.
I want to meet the
Let's
writer of
let
this
yeah.
website.
Yo, can I keep reading? Can we take
Go
turns
for it.
dramatic reading this? This is amazing. Okay. Spirit and breath of life. The wind blows life to the matter and brings new awareness to the world. What is awareness? Consciousness. What do we connect? Consciousness. Your character is spiritual by nature. You carry the power to spread good seeds and ideas.
I have great
Beautiful.
ideas. I always have great ideas.
Oh, yes, you do. You have brilliant ideas. I'm an idea person. I'm definitely more idea than execution, I would say.
Yeah, that's where we fall short because we're both dreamers. But you know what? We have
Head of the class.
pulled this off.
That's right.
So
We're
I think
here.
we need to start saying that we are also doers too.
We're
Damn
also
it.
that's yes, that's my intention of my I think my biggest intention of my current stage of life is to really bringing the doing part to it, and like seeing that
Yeah.
shit to fruition, because that has not I just realized that has not been my strong point, but that's why I'm with this group. I'm getting the support. I'm
Yeah.
that's a major focus right now, because it's not natural to me, and that's why it makes sense that like in this sign it says like
Wow.
exactly. Exactly. Okay,
You
so
like to
let's keep
create
going.
art and beauty
Mhm.
and have a strong sense of aesthetics. You can
Oof.
also become a successful fiction writer, but be careful not to be too far from reality. You have a high
Mm-mm.
level of imagination.
Definitely high level.
What was the majority of our conversation about before we started the podcast? Aesthetics. We literally
So
talked about like
yeah, we were
lighting.
like,
I'm literally sitting in front of a rainbow light. I don't really know if it's showing rainbow, but
yes, I got my blue, I got my stars. I had a whole other lights that we have how many lights, how many colors. This is
I have twinkle lights in front of me. You can't really tell that,
yes, I got
but
my little selenite lamp lit up over there. I got my little yeah, aesthetic baby.
yeah,
We got it.
all about it.
And actually, I think one of our first conversations ever that I actually remember was actually us talking about um how we had like similar kind of like
Aesthetics.
fashion aesthetics, and
Yeah,
like, oh, like the way that you wear your necklaces. It's like I we got the layered necklaces and the
yeah,
chokers, and just this kind of like we just have a very similar fashion, like we have very similar aesthetics, like we love similar colors, like
yeah,
come on.
yeah. And it says art and beauty. We both consider ourselves artistic in some way or
Definitely.
another. I am
Absolutely.
specifically in the beauty industry. I'm a cosmetologist as craft.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it does say later on artist and musician for um,
Yep.
appropriate professions.
Yo, and
So
here's the thing too. Though it also says philosopher, mathematician, artist, musician. And are we not like I don't claim mathematician, but I do claim philosopher. I do believe I am a philosopher,
so
okay?
it's
And
funny that
I
you say that because I was literally like I seen that and I was like that'd be so cool to say that I'm a philosopher, but like I don't know if I necessarily am feeling aligned to that particular title, but I definitely need to maybe work up to it because I like the way
I
that
take it.
sounds.
I take it. I'll take it. And you know, that's like in the they say sorry, this is just me connecting all the things again. Cosmic Connect, baby. But like my Sagittarius, like Sagittarius, one of their like main adjectives is philosopher, you know, and that's like the thing with like the centaur symbolism because it's like there's the human, so there's the head aspect, but then there's like the body of it, which is like the centaur animal body. So it's like we have this there back to the idea of duality, and it's like, you know, we're part head, part philosopher, love to learn, love to like be expansive. But then that also comes like in our body. We have these like bodily instincts that's like, bitch, I'm just gonna go wild. Like I can't even just like when we just don't think about shit. We have our times when
Yeah.
we just don't think about shit, and then we have times
Hmm.
where we just overthink about shit. So it's interesting when I'm going back to duality, how it's like we have like the mental, we have the heart chakra, we have a lot of things with like the sacral chakra type of vibes, and might be if any audience members are not like knowing what I mean about that, we can do a whole other segment about like all the chakras and what that means and all that stuff. But
Oh
just
yeah.
just pretend like you know what I'm talking about if you don't know what I'm talking about. This is my disclaimer for this entire series, this entire show. This is what I do with my best friend. Like we'll talk about our friends and we'll be like we never went to the same school, so like she would just talk about like the people from her school, and like I had no idea who she was talking about, and I would do the same to her, but like I would just be like, oh yeah, like totally, like I know who you're talking about, like and once you're just I don't know,
Oh
maybe this
yeah.
is like the key to my intelligence is like once you tell yourself you know what this is and what this is talking about and you can understand it, it's like oh wait, I actually do, like I actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyways, going back to uh before that whole tangent, what I was talking about, how it's like the balance with the head and heart and the sacral, and then we go back to the appropriate profession part that we just kind of went into, and it says like again back to the duality of like mathematician versus like artist musician. Like most people would say that those are not complementary things, where like people will tend to be one or the other, and there's this like beautiful balance um
Yeah.
between these professions. That's cool.
I wouldn't say I'm a mathematician, but I definitely didn't hate math when I was in school. I actually liked it until I struggled with it and I didn't do
Mm-hmm.
well and I got discouraged. But
Mm,
I had to take some math classes for the welding program that I was in. And it was basic math, but I was like, oh man, I forgot like how much I kind of like math. So
mm,
even though I'm very artistic, I do like the breakdown of numbers and like I really like
mm-hmm.
fractions. A lot of people hate those.
I loved long division. I always loved doing long division and
Yeah, I always
subtraction.
liked what is it, PEMDAS? All
Mhm.
the like long like all the equations where it's just
Mhm.
everything is in it. Like I
Mhm.
love them. I was
Doing
really good
that
at times
algebra.
tables when I was a kid.
Oh, that's fun. That's cool. I wasn't the
Yeah,
best with
so
it, but I was very good in every subject in school. Math, I just said was like my least best.
oh okay.
Like I still did very good in math, and I still like, but it was just my least best. I wouldn't say I'm like passionate about math, but I definitely know what you're talking about. Where it's like I would do the math, and I'm like, this is there is something satisfying about like doing a math
Yeah.
equation and how perfect everything tends to go out until you get into like imaginary numbers and all that freaking advanced math shit. That's not that I stopped before that. Like my math does not go that deep. Like, but I just see what it's talking about. Like I see how it's like we just have that balance, and it's like
Yeah,
it's cool,
totally.
very
And
cool.
then
Oh, we got the last sentence. We got the last sentence.
oh
It
yeah.
says, oh, this is deep. The wind is what gives us life and keeps us alive, called prana in India, symbolized by the essence of life. According to the Mayan belief, the wind is the breath of God. That's us. We're the breath of
I've
God.
really got into yoga this year, and I just find that so flattering. Like, I almost
Beautiful.
want, like, almost brings me to tears. Like, it's just so big.
Mhm. Mhm. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. But I mean, it does. I like how it also goes into like the kind of like challenges of it, the challenges of the sign.
Oh
And I
yeah, the
love how,
challenges.
how every
Like,
sign has its strengths and its weaknesses.
hmm
Um, so we
and I
can't get
think that that's
too
perfectly
in our
makes
heads,
sense.
but we can't get too cocky about literally being the breath of life. But you know,
Right.
it's pretty iconic that we are both that.
The challenge
It
being
makes sense.
responsibilities and fear associated with it, indecision, not
Mm.
being able to commit. And I think that that was literally what I was feeling reading that last line was just like, whoa, that's a lot.
The challenge is me to a T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I like to make that challenge come up in my life a lot. Like
Mm.
like you know what I mean? Like I'll
It's like
take
it's
on
a continuous
responsibilities.
lesson almost. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'll
Mhm.
take it on. I'll be like, I got this, I got this, I got this. And then I'll be like,
Mhm.
oh no, do I have this? Like,
Yes.
why
It's
did
like
you make
yes.
that challenge come up?
Yes, and I love how it exactly says it's not because it doesn't just say responsibilities, it says responsibilities and fears associated with it. So it's not even just it doesn't say that you aren't responsible. It just says that it's a challenge in your life of like your responsibilities and like you just have certain fears associated with responsibilities and like yeah, that's crazy. That's really cool.
Are you
But it's
indecisive?
true.
I feel like we both have been a little indecisive throughout this. I mean, we eventually come to something semi quick, but
Indecisive is an understatement, baby. Understatement.
well, I have
What?
to work on that.
I know, and I have done a lot of work on it, but I would not say that it comes to me naturally. I really, it goes back to that mental thing. It's like some things I've been getting better too at like following my intuition and discerning that and being like, oh yeah, this is an intuitive thing. So I know that I could just go with it and having more faith in those things. But I think
Yeah,
before I had this like relationship with the universe in the way that I do now, like I was I would get so much in my head about a decision because it felt like do or die. And that I
right.
think is one of the big things that kept me from that action that we were talking about because it's like that's what keeps it in the mind and like out of your physical reality is when you're just like in that analysis paralysis type shit. Like
Yes.
I think that that's been a major issue for me.
Yeah.
100%.
I feel like there's some things I'm good at being decisive about. Like, I won't
Yes.
even
Same.
go back and forth. I'll just be like, okay, it's
Mhm.
this, to whatever.
Mhm.
We're not even gonna
Mhm.
talk about it. But if it's something that it's actually in my control, there's nothing else besides me that needs to do it. I'm like
Mm.
crippled by the decision. That was
Mhm.
actually my problem yesterday. I didn't get any of the things I could have done yesterday done because I
Mhm.
just was crippled by indecisiveness. It's just
Yes.
ridiculous. And
Yes.
not
No,
being
but
able
I
to
I feel
commit,
that.
like not being able to commit to like the order, like
Mhm.
just do it. I know I need to do all
What
the
did we just
things.
talk about for the what did we just talk about for how long before we started?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah, they read us to a T. They read us to a T.
yeah,
They
they
read
got
us
us
so
good.
to a T. And yeah, it's like the reason you can't commit too is because you're indecisive. At least for me, it's like hard to commit because I'm not sure about my certain decision. But I'm like you too, where it's like some decisions I know and I know all the way. But the thing is, like many things in life, you are fine choosing either thing. And for those things where I've like it's fine choosing either thing. I just have a hard time doing that because it's like if it's not fully clear from the get, like I just get lost. I just get lost in the fog of the mind.
I think that if we talk about this more, I think that's when we should discuss like signs we get along with or signs that we contribute
Yeah,
to
I
our
think
growth,
that
just
all
because
that
we'd have to get into
I
so
think
much
that we
more to
got the
do that.
basic. I think we did a great like our intro to what we are and
Just
what we got in
that was just
common.
about our signs and what was specific to us
Mhm.
and what related to us.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
for
do you want to
sure.
do a
And then
card pull for this episode?
yes, like let's um let's open the space. Like here, let me do my cleanse. Get
We did
my.
a little smoke cleanse when we first kind of started, but
Now we got the live.
let's do this another
I
one
got my
because
incense. I didn't have my incense going before. I literally just put it out. I didn't even mean to do that.
I
I think
did,
that's a
but
great
my
one.
frankincense went so fast, so I'm gonna do one of these neck chaplas again.
I always feel like a special sparkle fairy with my magic wand when I got my little incense.
I know. So I actually love to use an incense to like burn in an intention into a bay leaf. Like so because you can literally use
Ooh.
it as a pen. Like it's like a wood burner, basically. The most witchiest
What
shit
were
I ever
we
came
just
up with.
talking about? Blue having brilliant ideas. Like this is what the fuck I'm talking about. This is just one example of what the fuck I'm talking about. Like
Trademark. No, I'm just kidding.
taking things to a next level, day by day.
So I
What
made
the hell?
Jeremy take a picture of me one night when I figured that out. So if I can figure out how to insert a photo, I'll insert a photo somewhere on the screen.
Yeah,
But
I need to see
I was like, take a picture of this. I'm so cool.
that. I'm a cool witch.
I was like, I just came up with this. He's like, you didn't see anyone do that before? And I was like, no.
I never saw that before. I don't know. I just take materials from my house and I do things. I don't know. I don't know what other people do. Okay. Maybe that's fucked. I don't know. I call it intuitive. Being intuitive with my
Yeah.
magic. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is already raising my vibe. I have to say, it feels really nice. It smells so good. But you done? All right. So what are you? All right. So we got our. Are we doing our goddess hangs card
Yes.
pull?
I'll read it for you. It is music. Music lifts our
Ooh.
spirits and raises our vibrations. Play and create music often. This has been my stalker card. And I'm like, yeah,
Ooh.
I'll get to
So
it.
what you gonna like start your EP soon? What's good?
I don't know about that.
And that's related to both of our Mayan wind sign
Yeah.
because it literally said musician as a
And you know what?
occupation.
It kind of looks like, m- like mute, like your voice going through the wind. You know what I mean? Like the music going.
Wow. Oh my gosh, we're gonna talk. We are gonna talk, and that's what I'm saying too. Like there's many things already that I want to connect to later in the episode. I'm like, y'all just gonna have to wait till we get there for me to connect it. But this is extremely aligned with our episode. This card is extremely aligned with our episode. It already is from the past of it, but it's also aligned with the future of it. We are pulling together timelines of our own shit. Like, time is an illusion, everybody.
Yes.
That's what's happening.
Yes. Time is a construct. Everything down to our
So,
damn calendar, man.
how does it make you feel that that card is stalking
Probably the same as the responsibility of being wind.
you? Ooh.
Just it's not something that it's such a weird thing because it's like I'm not scared of it, but I have
Mhm.
like fear around doing what ultimately I want to do. So it's just
Mhm.
I don't know if I necessarily
Mm.
I'm so torn on it because I was songwriting, but the one song that I wrote with a friend, we performed it together. So it was like very much singer songwriter.
Mm.
But then when I was writing on my own, I
Mhm.
don't I remember making some things that didn't really feel like I would be singing them. So I don't really know what my aspirations were as a kid as far as like actually being the one on stage or being the
Mm.
one that wrote the damn thing and gets to like see
Mhm.
it, you know, do its work.
Yes.
I really love the concept of maybe being like a voice in like an EDM song or something because you get
Hell
to do
yeah.
both, but like I don't have to
Yeah.
go on stage with every DJ that uses that track. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
they could just be using
Mhm.
it like maybe I do pop-up things where maybe I'm
Like you
there,
could
but
be a
like
session. You could be
I
a
would be just a
session
feature. I
singer
want to
where
be
you
Lil
just
Jon of the EDM like girl singing.
fuck yeah. Yo, this needs to happen. I don't know how to
But
make this happen.
I also could totally see myself finally like breaking whatever block I have and like writing more and doing songwriting. But I haven't been able to
Mhm.
get that. Even when I journal, I just can't break past the mundane journaling. So
Mm.
I've been like putting it off since we started Quantum Goddess. And once the Quantum Goddess is over and I get back from my music festival, I won't really have much else to focus on. So, my
Mhm.
business, of course, but like, oh, maybe yeah, that's when I will finally take the time.
I love it. I love how you're just casually like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like also run a business and also do all these things and but I have so much time after
Yeah,
that could, but
exactly.
you literally will because like you just get shit done like that.
I'm a multitasking queen.
That's what you do. Okay, so I have this deck and I
Are
just
you
felt like it was
using a different
related
deck
to
or are
what
you
we're
using
talking
the
about
same
today.
one?
I'm using a different one. It's the
Mm,
pocket version of the Work Your Light Oracle
okay,
by Rebecca Campbell.
okay.
These are really nice cards. They're very beautiful. So this was the one that I was like, this what we're doing this week.
I like it.
What is the card for us this week from this beautiful deck? What is
But I feel like music is it's such a hard thing though because it's such a stalker card for me because I am constantly surrounding myself with music for the most part.
mm,
So sometimes I'm thinking about the festivals that I'm going to be going to soon, or
mhm.
a lot of my friends are artists themselves. So I think about them
Yes.
often. Like anytime any of my artist friends are going to perform and I know about it, I'm sending out so many vibes when they're doing that. Like, so music is just such
Mhm.
a constant in my life. Like I
It's
sing
yeah.
every day.
It's completely around you all at all
Yeah.
times on many
So it's
different
hard to
levels.
deny
Mhm.
it coming
Your
up.
connection.
Yeah.
It's a connection. It's a major life connection for you. I
Definitely.
think that's
It's
beautiful.
probably for both of us though, because music's pretty
Absolutely.
prominent in your life too.
Yes. Like I don't go without it. Yeah, like music
It sounds
even
like in
before
your
I was
family too.
creating it. Yes, like my family is very musical. Um grew up around many like instruments, guitar, bass. I always played with my little keyboard. Always I went took piano lessons when I was growing up. So did my sister and my I don't know why, but
Nice.
like the whole family, like I was the one to break it. It was pretty much like all the women didn't really play instruments, but like it was all the guys in the family would play guitar. And like
Really?
my grandpa on my dad's side was a jazz. He was a professional jazz guitarist. So he skedoodle bopped.
That's cool. Skidoodle bop. Is that one of the new
But he
Frenchy
knew all
words,
the
or do you
jazz
use
chords.
that word often?
That was made up today. That just happened, okay? You just
She's
witnessed the
been
birth of
making up
that.
words a lot lately.
My mind has been doing some interesting shit. So anyway, as we were saying, my grandpa, no, but really what he did was he knew the jazz chords, and then my dad was like a hippie, so he grew up playing like rock and roll guitar.
Oh,
So
okay.
my little brother, he's an incredible guitarist. My older brother plays guitar. Um, my little yeah, my little brother, he went to like the same high school with me, and he would go. He freaking would shred that baby, and then he would like learn the jazz chords from my grandpa. So like he's just
Oh,
very good with the guitar. But I picked up guitar for a little bit, but piano was always the main thing, and that's like I don't know why. That was just like that shit is sexist. Like women play piano and just like talk in the kitchen and sing, and then the men just play the guitar, and it's like yo,
oh
like
wow.
let's have some, and but it's not, it wasn't intentional, I don't think, but I just noticed that. My mom noticed that too. So she was like, she always liked that. I like play a little bit guitar. Like I used to play a little Metallica. That was my shit when I was like in junior high school. I'd be
Wow.
like,
Little middle school, Frenchie and Jeremy would have been best of friends. Jeremy's
yeah.
family, like, he's grew up on Metallica, and he
Oh,
can play the
same. Yeah, my
guitar
whole
pretty
fam.
well.
Mhm.
He doesn't play
That's
as
cool.
much as he did when we first started dating, but he does
Mhm.
know how to play, and he's pretty good. If he played it more often, he'd probably be better.
Yeah, I that's the thing is like I don't know. I think for a little bit I was into the guitar, and then I played bass, and I really like I
Oh,
liked I got into bass more than
I
guitar,
want to
and like
play the
but
bass.
piano was always my main thing. Like I think I kind
I
of just had
always
those
wanted
as
to
like
play the piano.
I played a little bit. I played
Sorry,
a
I
little bit.
interrupted you.
Piano is very helpful. I think it's just very like visual. I think it helps me understand music theory, but I feel like whenever you learn music theory, it's like kind of related to whatever instrument you know. So I feel like maybe it's just because I knew piano first that like it helps me visualize the music theory, and maybe that's why I'm not as good with guitar, because it's like I have to think of the patterns of everything a little bit different.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I used to be in a metal band with my brother. We were a technical death metal band, and I was the bassist, and I'm like,
That's
you can't
sick.
make this shit up. Like
That's
that's
sick.
that's me. When I tell you music has always been, and not even that's just the playing it, like as far as yeah, like it's so intrinsic to my life, and it's so intrinsic to who I am. Like music, listening to music at all times, like the phases, the everything, like
Yeah.
same as you. Like I mean,
Yeah, my grandma could play
you know.
the piano, and she taught me a couple things
Mhm.
when I was a kid, but I always wanted to take piano lessons. I just thought that would have been, because I
Yeah.
mean, I was a singer. That was the one thing I could do
Mhm.
that didn't cost my mom any money. So I did every choir program that I could ever do, because my instrument was my voice. You can't take that away. It doesn't
Mhm.
cost anything.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so the piano was such a pinnacle part of singing, because you harmonize with the piano. You find your notes on a piano. Like, I've
Yes.
only had one out of many instructors that used a guitar, and it was like one
Same
class
here.
where he was like, "Okay, this
Mhm.
is C, like sing with this." But most of the time it's always a piano. So I always just felt
Mhm.
like what would make me a singer is if I could play the piano. I don't really feel that way anymore, but I do remember having that thought when I was younger.
Mhm.
So it's
That's
cool
cool.
that you
I
got to
think
learn how to play.
it does. Yeah, like it goes together. Yeah, I'm definitely very like grateful to my family for that, because I feel like just growing up and being around that shaped me in many ways, probably beyond my own even understanding of it.
Yeah,
But yeah, just I think my whole family is pretty much like that too, where it's yeah, we're into music, we jam out, you
I
know.
love that. I'd love to be at a family of gathering. It'd probably be fun.
It gets it gets fun. We do bonfires upstate sometimes with my uncle, and it's cool. But like but that's the other thing too, is like we all have our own different tastes of music,
Mm,
and sometimes it's hard when like everybody in the family has their strong taste in music. It's like gotta learn how to share the aux chord.
right.
But overall, it's great. Oh, okay.
So
So we
what
got
card
this
did you
card.
pull?
This is beautiful. It says dance with life. And then it says do something to change your energy.
Oh,
But
I
we got
like
music
that.
and dance. So there's a lot of movement.
Yeah,
There's a lot of movement going
I like
on.
it.
And they're both
This is
very air, very wind
Yeah, it
type,
looked like they're
because
moving on
there's
the card too.
yes. Yes, like wind is even its whole type of instrument. And you got
Yeah,
music, I got dance. The skirt is like flowing in the wind. Beautiful.
so good. Is it just a person or is it two people?
It looks like two people, but it could also be one person
Like kicking their leg up or something?
in a mirror type of vibe.
Oh.
No, nope, it's two people.
Oh,
It's two
okay.
people, but it's very kind of symmetrical, but it's different at the same time.
Yeah.
Like one of
That's
them has
very
one leg
cool.
up. Yeah, one of them. Wait, is that her leg up, like looking like a hand?
Yeah,
She's
kind of. That's
kicking,
why I was
baby.
like,
Or am I just? That's just the dress. That's just the dress.
so we're gonna
Is that
talk
one of the
about
cats?
Starseed.
Ooh, we're gonna talk about the star seeds. We're gonna talk about the indigos and the crystals and the rainbow children. And we're gonna vibe the fuck out. We're gonna share general perspectives. We're gonna share different perspectives. See how we feel. Is this all?
I'm
Oh, I'm
not
gonna do
as
that too.
affluent. I feel like a lot of the things that I've always known about Starseed is just like the concept,
Mm. Mhm.
and it was always such like a loose concept,
When did you
but
first hear the
basically,
concept? You remember when you first heard of the concept?
I think I
Mhm.
always heard of like aliens actually being connected to humans in some way or another, like way
Mhm.
long time ago. But I grew up pretty religious. I slightly mentioned that in the last podcast episode, but I wasn't really sure like what was real and what wasn't. So
Mhm.
I think starseed, the actual term of that, really only came into my like vocabulary in probably the last 2 3 years. But I think the first
That's
time I
not
ever heard of
recent.
it, I was in college. um
Mhm.
and I think in college there was just and it's I remember at the time thinking this crazy guy is like out there. But it's just now it's kind of funny because it's just like he was kind of more enlightened than I was at the time, and I was just like, yeah, okay, man, whatever,
I think we
cool.
all have those things.
Yeah. But in the last couple years,
Mm.
I've heard it and I like kind of looked it up because I think I've heard of indigo children and I've
Mhm.
heard of like reptilians, like that kind of
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
but I didn't really know that those were like maybe different words for different things underneath the starseed umbrella or anything relation
Mhm.
to it. So connecting them all and putting them together, I actually
Yes.
felt like when I was listening to this article, I was totally floored. There was times where I felt really emotional because I was like, wow, this all is stuff that I like kind of knew or just kind of made sense,
Mm. Mhm.
but didn't necessarily know this before. And I think I had read this article before yesterday when I read it, but
Mhm.
yesterday was more of a refresher. So I'd only read it that one other time, but I remember feeling the
Mhm.
same thing, just being like, whoa, like I kind of already knew that. Like, what?
Yeah, it's like this is familiar. Like,
Yeah.
this is ringing a bell with me.
Yeah. When was the first time you ever like heard of it?
No, it's interesting. Yeah, for me, actually, I definitely, I think similar to you, but definitely before I knew, because there's all these buzzwords that I think
Hmm.
many people hear, and then I think that it's kind of later on that we go back and really
You're like, oh
actually
yeah.
know more about what that actually means and how all these different kind of like buzzwords connect. And I think we always are still like learning and expanding our understanding of these things. But it's funny because, yeah, I think that when I first became like conscious of the terms of it was maybe like, I don't know, it was more than 5 years ago, but it wasn't much more than that, I don't think.
Okay.
I
Oh
remember
yeah,
seeing a
we never
documentary
told you
about it.
guys last episode how old Frenchie was. So how old are you, Frenchie?
Oh, I almost said the wrong age. I'm 27.
So about 5 years ago, you were like 22,
Yeah, like I was gonna say like 21. So I don't know. I guess 21. I want to
20,
say
21,
21.
22.
21,
You're pretty
22.
young
But I don't
though.
even know.
Like I think I heard
Yeah.
starseed that particular term probably around the same age though. So it's a little bit longer for
And
me ago, but I feel
yeah.
like then it was still like you're saying, it was like a
Mhm.
buzzword. It wasn't being used in a way that really drew me in and was like, tell me more. Like the Indigo Children
Mhm.
probably drew me in more and it still didn't. You can find
Mhm.
so many different articles on that. So it didn't really, some of the articles I found didn't really super loop me back to this whole star seed family
Right.
thing.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of like it's funny because I think a lot there it's kind of like to me there's almost like two sides of a lot of like the content that goes out there about these kind of like topics. It's like one on the one hand there's like more like mainstream journalists who kind of like get into these topics, and it's like they're very like skeptical articles and things that are being like, are these people just crazy type of like, that's kind of like I think the perspective of a lot of articles. And then there's like the other side of it, which is like the people who are like in the shit, who have this different perspective, who identify with these things, like putting out their own information about it. So it was like I think it was later until I actually got that perspective of it rather than just like these people are crazy perspective. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, I get what you're
But
saying.
I think even when I was hearing it from that perspective, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And honestly, even before that, I was around these people who are kind of aware of that, but I just wasn't on a level of consciousness that I really understood what these people were talking about around me. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
So that's why
I
it goes
do.
deep. There's a lot. I don't know. I got confused almost of where it came from, but like I
So
feel like when
another,
I first got conscious of it was like this feels like something bigger. Like this feels like really relevant to me now.
yeah,
But it wasn't really until later that I started to realize that I was that. So do you know the hip hop group the Underachievers?
I don't.
But they
Y-
are known as being like Starseed, Indigo. Like they're very conscious of a hip hop group.
Okay.
It's not just like other hip hop groups. I was always around that, and like, but it wasn't until later that I realized like the deeper levels of it, until I literally watched a documentary and I was like, wait, those people are like related to the people that I went to high school with, and like they're famous and shit now. Like, oh, okay, interesting. And it's I don't know, I just had a weird like connection with that. And so when I'm like, oh wait, this is like literally like a vibration that I I recognize.
Oh,
And I
okay.
realized like I recognize that because I, your vibe is always attracting the tribe, and but like I just wasn't conscious of that.
Right. I have a weird connection that
Hmm.
is a quick tangent. So when I
Mhm.
was listening to this article, the first time I ever had any like exposure to the Mormon religion or the Church of the Latter-day Saints
Mhm.
was my foster
Mhm.
parents were Mormon. And I
Mm.
remember sitting in their living room one day, and I'm not trying to offend any Latter-day Saints or Mormons. I have no idea what each of you believe, if you all believe the same thing, or if there's a little bit of variation. So I'm not speaking for the general population of their
Mhm.
religion. However,
Right.
I'm sitting in their living room and I'm like, do you think that there's, aliens and like we have any connection with them? And they basically explained to me, like, yeah, we believe that we have family in other galaxies. When we pass on, we will
Mm.
all meet in, and I forget the term they use, so I'm just gonna say heaven because I feel like everybody has that
Mhm.
eternal place of bliss. Um,
Mhm.
and I was like, really? Okay. So then when I'm listening to this article, I was like, it's so interesting. I think they're probably the only like organized religion that
Mhm.
maybe slightly have this loop into the Starseed family. And I was like, what if
Wow.
there is like, I don't know if they call it that or if they just, like some other
Mhm.
Christian or pagan and Christian overlapping
Mhm.
that's there, Christmas
Yes.
trees and bunnies and eggs and just there's just various things that are overlapping but are not celebrated the same. I'm just curious if maybe Starseed is being interpreted in a different way by the Mormon religion because
I
it's
think
so similar to how they explained it to me
yes.
is how I was understanding like just the concept of
The
Starseed.
family in the
So
sky.
with
Your
that being
family in the sky.
said, what do we want to say is the concept of starseed? How do you want to explain what that is for somebody that maybe doesn't know what that is?
I feel like the most general, basic way that I would say most people would agree with this what it means. Starseed is a being who originates from extraterrestrial origins on a soul level and is currently incarnated on Earth. They're thought to be a star seed. Like, just think of it as an external star being seeded into Earth through an earthly incarnation. And some star seeds have this is their very first life on Earth, so their soul is like very new to this dimension, this way of being. And then there's other star seeds who have had many incarnations on Earth. There's ancient star seeds who have been intertwined. Some people even say that different galactic seeded different strands of DNA, different strains of DNA. Remember what I said before about DNA being important. So there's many different levels to it, but I think that just star seed is generally that.
Kind of how I understood it. I understood it similar to like, you know, alien ancestors kind of thing.
Mm,
Now, the one thing I found is there is an interesting controversy over if it's everyone or if it's a
mm-hmm,
select few. And I don't
mm-hmm,
think you or I are here to tell you either one of those things. I think
mm-hmm,
ultimately we're just interested in the concept of star seeds and the ancestral alien DNA being infused into a human,
mm-hmm,
being not necessarily someone was abducted and that there was intercourse between alien and human. No, just we were infused
because
with
there's
it by on a
technology too.
soul level, not on a carnal
Well,
level, correct?
no, I disagree with that. I think that, well, to me,
Okay.
there's two levels of it, and I think that I think that we're actually getting very deep, a little bit deep
Oh,
into
okay.
it with this, but like, so I think that I want to keep it still just general for this
I
episode,
guess I
but
didn't
like,
realize that that was deep, so sorry.
well, because I think that the most agreed upon, like to me, there's both, and I think that like a star seed being your soul on that level is not did not originate on Earth. So then there's just the difference between like an Earth origin soul and then a galactic origin soul being
Yeah, but
here
I
at the
think
same
that
time.
that's the controversial concept. Like, because like you can literally find people that will really talk about Starseed just being everyone on this planet is
Mhm.
originated from some alien family of some sort. And then there's others
Mhm.
that believe kind of what you're saying, and I don't really
Mhm.
think I have a side, to be completely honest with you.
Well, to me, it's both.
So
And that was just the one side, and then the other side of it is that there there is a physical aspect to it, and there is a physically genetic aspect to it. And to me, this is just my conclusion that I've come to, and I'm not telling anybody
oh yeah, no,
else
you're
out there what to think, but like how it makes sense to me at the most currently is like there is the soul level, but then there's also like your soul has to embody in order to be on this earth. In order to incarnate here, your soul needs to be in a body that has the frequency that has the almost like a light quotient capacity for the vibration of the soul for you to be able to be in a physical body. And so there are also different strains, and some people would say, and again, like I don't know, I wasn't there, or maybe I was, but I wasn't consciously aware of being there. I don't remember that if I was, okay? Like that some people say that even just the human race period was like they, then we get into the different types, and like but then there's like the biblical things, and there's the Anunnaki, and just giving you buzzwords that we will maybe cover in future episodes. But the point is that in the beginning of humanity, some people say that the very genetics of all humans were genetically engineered technologically
Yeah.
by different galactic races, and that throughout different times of humanity there were genetic experiments essentially, from the higher dimensions on humanity, that just infused different galactic DNA things into the genetics of all humanity, or different like lines. So to me there's both. There's the physical component as well as like the soul component. And
Yes.
yeah, again, I'm not telling anybody what to believe, but those are
No,
the
no,
two
no.
like parts of it.
I was just I felt like when I was doing just like brief research so that I could
Mhm.
better communicate with you in this conversation, I just felt like there was definitely this concept that everyone here is,
Mhm.
and then there is this concept that no, only some people are. And I
Mhm.
kind of just don't really know where I fall in that. So maybe that doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily apply in quite the two constructs you just explained. So like, yes,
Mhm.
I agree with what you're saying because I've always been really into like the Egyptians, and that's one of the biggest
Yes.
cultures that they
Yes.
say is infused with, alien DNA. And I think
Mhm.
also, I'm not gonna say it like that. I think like a lesser mind, when you think of human DNA, the only thing they can think of is like the intercourse, like the concept of
Mhm.
manipulating DNA in the lab wasn't even a concept back in that time that they
Right.
know of. So they always
Right.
think of what we have as labs now, and they're like, there's no way the Egyptians were doing that. Well, if they were using, alien technology not on this planet, then they could do anything
Mhm.
and you have no idea. But
Mhm.
I think that there's been this, at least for me, reading some from a maybe claircognizant person, very strong in that, but also not as educated in this particular topic. It just felt like they really wanted to misconstrue the whole topic as far as like
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
being more on a scientific level than a carnal level. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's like
I
they're
mean,
explaining it one
yeah.
way, but it's like, okay, but it doesn't have to
Yeah.
happen that one way for that still to be the case, the end result.
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly. I exactly get what you're saying. It's like they science and
Yeah,
technology that, I mean, extraterrestrials would have science and technology beyond our understanding of beyond our
surely.
comprehension. So people trying to describe it, and like, I don't know, I think about that with
It's
like a
like
lot of
caveman
religious texts
drawings.
in general. Sorry.
It's like caveman drawings. We try to make sense of these
Caveman
things, but
drawings. Yes, and like if you ever watch like Ancient Aliens, that's been like they go
one
into
of my favorite shows.
all that stuff. And yes, it's very cool to me how like alien, I think the collective consciousness had alien as like a futuristic type of thing for the longest time. It's like an alien is like it's
Well,
something
that's
that
if
may
time
happen
is
in the future,
linear.
but not realizing that they were with us all along. So
Yeah,
like ancient civilizations is also tied to the galactic.
yeah,
Absolutely.
right, totally. And it's
Yes. Mhm.
also they I think they explain it in a way that like time is linear too. Like there isn't
Mhm.
this like all the timelines are happening simultaneously and this is just
Mhm.
where you're at in this timeline. Like so that
Mhm.
makes that whole thing even more complex of just not
Yeah.
understanding that they could literally be doing it all along,
Like
not
outside of time and
futuristically.
space,
It's
and
happening
just,
now.
well, do you know how I conceptualize that is like, because I think a lot of people just have a hard time wrapping their head around like the concept of being outside of time and time not being linear. And like I just think of it as, either think of it as like a movie or like a book, where it's like it's like to make sense of it, I have to read the book front to back. Like the first time that I read it, I would probably read the book front to back. But then once I finish the book, once I kind of go through all those like incarnations to go through, like then I have access outside of it, and like that's that next level consciousness where now I can just open the book to any page, and I could like do a little edit here, I could drop a little thing here, so like they're looking from outside of the space time continuum, and they're able to be
Hmm.
like, I don't know, I almost think of it sometimes like the way that Earth is from that perspective is almost like a chessboard, because it's like, oh wait, like let me incarnate here at this time, let me incarnate here at that time, and they're all, and then people go into like, oh, are they simultaneous incarnations, or is there an order to, that's a whole other episode. There's going to be a lot of things in this episode that's going to be like, we're going to need a whole other episode, but just starting to kind of introduce these topics and get our viewers' brains, like the gears turning around what the possibilities are, and like what kind of things we're going to be that are related to all of this. I don't know. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, totally. Super interesting. And I mean, it makes sense in a lot of ways. I mean, if you look back to certain things, like, Ancient Aliens
Mhm.
does mention a lot of this stuff that I'm about to say, but like,
Mm.
they just prove it further. And I feel like this is the whole concept of Starseed connected to some of that scientific stuff, or is it? This is the one thing I couldn't really find an answer on. I didn't get to it. Or is it something where
Mm.
it's like astrology, where it's like it's still based on something, but it's not
It's more of an
acknowledged by
intuition
the
than a
educated
science.
folk.
Starseed is not acknowledged by the educated folk. No.
Okay,
Yes, it totally is. Like I think a lot of people view like the whole concept of starseed and the indigo. And then this is a big, I think, distinction as well, where it's like I think a lot of people hear starseed and think of what people mean when they say like, because back to your question before, sorry to go off on
you're
the
okay.
jump tangent, but it's important. Like I think when a lot of people say what you were saying before of like, is everybody a star seed, or are there only just like a certain, because you'll see sources that say like, oh, there's 72 million star seeds on Earth alive at this time, and it's like there. And I think that the issue, and I think that this was almost like a past level of consciousness that I think has been starting to open up and become more evolved. I think a lot of the first people who identified as I'm an indigo child or I'm a crystal child, which we'll go into more of what that means, but like they felt like what you see in certain people is like this spiritual ego develops. And I think a lot of people take the label of star seed and like the label of indigo to almost make them feel like superior to people whose like origins are on earth. And like that's where the fucking issue with that is. Like maybe
Yeah.
everybody is a star seed and we're just not aware of it, maybe, and like we people just need to awaken to the fact that they are star seeds, or maybe there are certain star seeds who came here with a certain mission, and it's not everybody, it's a certain group, but that group is not better or worse than anybody else. They're just,
Yeah.
it just means that you're here with a certain mission.
Yeah,
No,
right.
that's
And
it.
I think ultimately the reason why you get that is because it's like the human otherness and like I'm better than
Mhm.
you, and like that whole
Mhm.
thing that's impeding
Mhm.
on just realizing
Mhm.
that it's a collaborative, it's a
Yes.
collective, it's all
Yeah.
like Jeremy messaged Orion's belt, origin of the universe, pyramids line up with Orion. I think that's just a
Yes.
random, like,
No, and serious.
was that something
Yes.
you were saying that you need? I mean, that is true. So maybe
Mhm.
maybe he's
Yep. The
mentioning
pyramids
that
align
to
with the
be like the
stars.
scientific evidence to back up at least probably the Orion star seed. So, but we'll get
Mhm.
into the different star seeds in the next episode. We'll talk about each of them
Mhm.
a
Yeah, the
little bit.
different types. And I think that I think maybe this is what we're here to connect. Actually, one of the major things we're here to connect is there is, I think, a major disconnect between the kind of more intuitive, because I think in society in general, science is prized, and the intuitive arts and the intuitive science and those things which to me, after having my spiritual awakening and understanding the things that I understand, like the intuitive side of things, and like there's people who will channel, and like people get information about the star season, about like these different generations of quote unquote star seeds, like the indigos, the crystals, all that. Like people would treat that side of it as far as like the way that many people treat like psychic mediums, where I feel like you and I
Yeah.
are like, that shit is real. There's people
Mm-hmm.
who are scammers and are not legit, but
Oh,
like there are people who
totally.
are so spiritually in tune and are able to channel, and like I've witnessed this, like you have. So
Mm-hmm.
so I think you kind of need to have a certain level of that acceptance for that shit to be real as well, to fully get the full picture of it. Whereas like I think a lot of society, it's like needs scientific evidence, and it needs to be able to like have a scientific like paper about it. And there is that side of it too, because these
Yeah.
two sides really do connect. And that's why I love like Ancient Aliens and stuff like that. But sometimes I even feel like that show still discounts like the kind of
They
like
do.
more intuitive sides of it. You know what I mean?
They do. We're we're back to the duality. I just was like,
Mhm. Mhm.
yes, I think
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
that's definitely a disconnect there because neither one of those things are less important
Mhm.
because of the other. Like, and I think there's like
Exactly.
this struggle with like if we acknowledge it, it discredits this, and it's like, or it would prove it further. Like,
Yes.
um, but yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
a big, and it's that's something, honestly, that particular concept can honestly be applied to a lot of different topics. Like there's a lot of
Yes.
things that are like that
Oh
where
my
it's just
gosh.
like,
Don't even get me
yeah,
started.
yeah, right.
So many things. It's so many things, and it's just a
Yeah,
huge like disconnect. It's a huge disconnect, and I think that it does relate. It is a mirror of how like the masculine and the feminine have been disconnected, like in the world, and this and within people, and we're I believe we're in a time where this is beginning to like start to integrate again. But for
yeah,
so long, these things have just been kept so separate. And like the mind, the more masculine traits, because of the patriarchal society, it's like the mind, the mental aspects have been prized, and the technology and the math part of our wind sign has been prized. Whereas like the more feminine, the intuition, the flowing, the creative, the artistic side of our wind sign that we have in common is has been devalued as a society, and said that that's not legit. We have to prove it in this scientific way. You know what I mean?
yeah. Because that's such a strong thing in our society. I think that was kind of, some of the resistance that well, I don't know if I think we both had it a little bit about really just
Mhm.
bringing this topic to the forefront with our first episode. So
Mhm.
that's why we kept it light and like get to know us, because it's a lot. It's Starseeds can be one of those things that's like a fun, light conversation, but it
Mhm.
can also get pretty deep too.
Yes.
And a lot of people have opinions about it. And I don't think either one of us
Yes.
want to get into the weeds on
No.
either side. So,
We're not trying to step on anybody's toes.
yeah,
And I think that some people's toes is gonna feel stepped on regardless. And I think that because I think that there's just, again, it goes back to like, this is not for, not everybody's interested in this. This is not for
yeah,
everybody. That's okay.
yeah.
But I feel like I think like I was just saying, I'm just casually talking about reincarnation, and so many people don't even like, that's almost like offensive to people to like talk about reincarnation. And
Yeah.
again, like that's okay. Like your beliefs, like do you. I can
Hmm.
only just explain things the way that everything makes sense to me, because I have
Right.
spent years at this point putting shit together in my life and in my mind, and with like, there are certain things that I'm like, many things could be true, and this is true, and this is true, but then there are certain things that I've kind of just personally come to the conclusion of, like, this is just the only way that shit makes sense to me, and this is the only way, like, this is just my conclusions that I have come to. So when I'm sharing things, I'm going to be sharing the conclusions and the ideas that I have come to, but in no way am I trying to tell anybody at any point of like, if you don't believe that, you like,
Yeah.
no, like, just do you.
Same.
but please just keep an open mind, and we keep an open
Yeah,
mind, and that's it.
absolutely. Do you want to introduce a little bit about light language? Is this a semi-decent segue? We go from the
Mhm.
alien to the lightness.
Mhm. Yes, and I think maybe even before we kind of get more into star seeds and before we get into light language, I think we can just, yeah, just talking about, I think that this is really our first time just even talking about aliens in general. And
Yeah,
that's why this shit is crazy too. I think that we both have a little bit of resistance to this because it's like there's mad people who still just think that it's crazy to even believe in aliens. And to me, I'm like, duh, aliens exist. But I have people in my life who are like, literally, that's batshit crazy.
I think it's so crazy that people think it's crazy. Like, we literally don't even know what's at the bottom of our ocean. And
I
you want to
know.
tell me that you know definitively there is no other life besides what's on Earth. You're so self-righteous. Like, I'm sorry if I'm
Mhm.
stepping on your toes, but if your toes feel stepped on, then I stepped. But damn, like, what? It's crazy to me. Everyone should be a little more open-minded, of course, I believe that, but to
Mhm.
just think that we are the only thing that's breathing, thinking, walking upright maybe, or just having intelligent conversation, we're just so
Yeah.
wrong.
Yes. And what did I learn about the universe? One of the first things I learned about what is the universe is infinite.
Mhm.
That was the first thing that I learned as a child. I remember being like, what is the universe? And it's like everything. Universe equals everything, universe equals infinite. Those are kind of like the two things that I learned of this, what the universe is. That means infinite.
Yeah,
Every single combination exists, every single possibility exists because that is what infinite means. And so,
right.
why, like, I just don't understand. I'm with you. Like,
It's
I
just
just,
like, excuse me, I'm wrong, you're right, or you're wrong, I'm right thing. Like, that's really the core of that.
hmm. And I think it scares people.
Yeah, that's true.
It scares people to think that anything could exist. And I think because also a lot of people only are getting the kind of the scientific side and not understanding the more spiritual side to it
Yeah,
and the more interdimensional side to it, because I think that people only think of aliens as physical beings that are in other planets, but really, like, you can't talk about aliens without understanding, like, talking about interdimensional beings. And so people keep expecting, and it does exist in this way too, but people, it's, and this is where the disconnect has been as well. It's like people keep expecting this physical thing and they keep looking in their telescopes, but a telescope is not going to pick up a 12th dimensional being on a different planet. So, like, you also have to understand all of these different things to really talk about this shit.
yeah, which is can be a lot.
It's a
I
lot.
mean, there's a lot of
It's a
stuff.
lot. It's a lot. I fully understand that. I fully
I'm a
understand that. And then
baby when it comes to this topic. A straight up baby right out of the human womb, not knowing that I'm an alien baby. Like, so
Welcome to
it's
the
all fairly new to me, and I think it's all very interesting and fascinating,
mm,
and a lot of the things line up. It's almost like reading my astrology chart. It's like, damn,
mm,
like I have literally been, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I have literally been looking at Orion's belt since I was a kid. And I say it all the time. I moved a lot as a child. I lost track of how many
mm,
houses I've lived in. I don't even remember. It's a double digit number that's past 20 or 30. And I remember always saying at like high school age, when people would be like, "Where's your home? Like, where's your hometown?" I would always just say the stars because those never,
mm,
like, yes, they changed, but every night, if there was a clear sky, the stars were there. It didn't matter where I lived. They were always home. I could, as long as I looked
mm.
up at the stars, I was home. And then listening to this article, I'm like, huh, well, that's interesting. Like, I guess I am definitely one of these star seeds in some sort of fashion because it's so valid to certain
You
parts of
feel
my
it.
life that's like I've felt like that
Mhm.
or I've had that exact thought that's
Mhm.
so specific like sure if we are all living in a simulation then everyone's had that thought but we don't know that yet.
Mm.
So like it's probably not that common of a thought and or it is. I don't know.
Mm.
I haven't
No,
met
but
very
I
many
think
people that
that
say the stars are home.
you literally said that, and this is what I think is so beautiful about, I'll just call it like a starseed awakening.
Mm,
When you hear again what all these things are and you feel it in your body. Like, if there's one thing I feel like I've learned throughout my spiritual awakening, it's like truth is felt. Truth is not just
yeah,
understood mentally, truth is felt in your body. That's what people always say when they're saying, take it if it resonates, if this
right,
resonates with you, because truth is not just, it is understood mentally, but it's also felt.
right,
And it's many things in this world, many things in our reality, many things that we've been conditioned to are tearing us apart from our feeling ourselves, our trusting of ourselves. And for me, much of my process of my spiritual awakening has been like coming back to my body, trusting myself, listening to my own intuition, understanding what that is. If you're not coming from a lot of this information from that, it's like, yeah, like I just feel like when you feel it, like even if you're not understanding what the fuck you're feeling, like that's it. Like that means this is getting to something. Something within you is
yeah.
waking up, you know? And that's what's so cool is like learning more about it and having these constant layers of like, oh my gosh, I knew that all along, but I didn't know that I knew that.
And that's how come I definitely follow that gut feeling. Like if it's like, oh, that makes sense,
Mhm.
then I'm like,
Mhm.
that must make sense.
Mhm. Yes.
But I have always, with that same thought, always had the ability to be like, well, that might resonate with me, but it doesn't necessarily resonate with someone else. Whereas I do
Right.
think there is some people that have the thought of like, oh, I resonate with this, so everyone must resonate with this. And I think that that's where you get that weird divide about star seeds as a whole. Do you get what I mean?
Mm.
Like,
Because then you're just not respecting people's sovereignty.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that that's a big part of opinions.
Yes, yes. I think we both agree on that where it's, I don't know. I think we both generally respect people's.
It makes me it makes me more interested to meet other people too. Like, it's not like a turn off. I think it's a turn off to think that everyone's the same. I think that the thing that was interesting to me is the whole time I was
Mm,
listening to it, I was like, oh, I really connect to that. And I'm like, I want to meet the person that connects to that thing that I don't like feel a
mm,
draw to. Like that's how I was thinking about it the whole time I was listening to all the different um
mhm,
families.
mhm.
Like just like, wow, like I don't necessarily resonate with that, but I want to meet the person that is. I wonder what they're
I want to
like.
know about it. You want to learn about it. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And like, yeah, and it's funny because what you just said just totally made me like go into space and think off because I'm like, this is the thing that I also believe though. Because you said like we're not all the same, but then and this is where duality comes in because also we are all the same. Like I think anyone, even people who are not into this shit that we're talking about, they just come into this level of consciousness where you become aware that we are all one. We are all connected. There is not just me and then no one else because that's just your ego that's telling you that you're separate. But at the same time, we are not all on we are also all different and we are all also on different levels and have different layers that is the three-dimensional reality of it. On the three-dimensional reality of it, we are not all the same. I want to transition this to light language. Exactly, to me, what light language is a language that bypasses your thinking mind and goes straight to your heart, goes straight to your soul. It is felt. It is not mentally understood. Therefore, it has capabilities of moving past your ego and activating different parts of you, which regular language may not because you're too focused on the mental aspect of it. Light language is often known as a channeled language of the galactics. But light language is not only channeled from the galactics. We all can be channeling our own higher selves in order to do light language. You can also, I know there's people who channel angelic energies into a light language. I know of someone who channels their ancestors in a form of light language. I believe that fairies can be channeled into light language. Dragons can be channeled into light language. So, light language is not just one language, but it is one form of communication which brings in light code energy by passing the ego, the thinking mind, and having different clearing capabilities, activation capabilities within the body.
That's a very good explanation.
It's funny because light language was actually the first thing that I feel like had us like really talking. So do you want to just kind of recap for everybody like our
So,
kind of like first
yeah,
conversation about that?
so the course that we talked about in our last episode that we're both in right now, quantum leaping our businesses or ourselves, however you want to look at that. In one of our live calls, Frenchie offered, or did they ask you? Did you offer
The
to do
first
light
one,
language?
the first time I did it, I don't know, I just felt
I think
really
you
strongly like
offered it, and then
we
the second time they
I
asked you
offered
to.
it. Mhm.
Yeah, I think you
Mhm.
offered it. I'm not sure what everyone's viewpoint was. I don't know if anyone else had heard light language before, if they knew what
Mhm.
they were accepting or agreeing to, or if other people knew what you were talking about. I think I had heard the term, but didn't really have any sort of concept of what that was or anything.
Mhm.
I think I just knew it was alien language, but like I don't think I knew anything more than that. Frenchie offers to do some light language and she started to do it, and I think most of us went into a meditative state. I think some people even turned their cameras off, just to listen and not be really viewed. But I remember like closing my eyes, and a few times I would open my eyes and kind of like peek through my eyelashes, like what maybe anyone was doing on the screen. And for the most part, if anyone
Mhm.
was doing anything, they were just like swaying. And the whole time I was listening, I was just like, this is so peculiar. Like, I don't know what's being said. I don't know. It's not like I knew I could like recite after you and repeat anything, but it was
Mhm.
very familiar. And the only thing I
Mhm.
could connect it to was when I was Apostolic Pentecostal as a kid, people would speak in tongues at church. I eventually did receive the gift of the Holy Ghost is was like a whole thing. Like you get baptized,
Mhm.
you receive the gift of the Holy Ghost, you get a certificate for each of them. You know, as a kid, that's like a big thing. You want a
Mhm.
certificate. Like I was the first one to get baptized at my church when my pastor first moved there. So like
Yeah.
I was all about getting the certificates, baby.
Guess
But for
I
some
didn't know that they
reason,
give you a certificate.
yeah, I think it was just my church. I don't think that was like an incentive to other
You're
churches.
like, that's not everybody.
Um, anyways, I kept trying and they always just kept saying you just need to pray, you just need to pray, but every time I would speak in tongues, it was never what they thought it was. Like they were just like, "Nope,
Mm.
you didn't get the Holy Ghost. Like, sorry." Well, then I was at church
Oh.
camp
Uh-huh.
and I did similar things, like felt like the same thing I was doing at my church, but was doing it at church camp. And one of the church
Mhm.
camp counselor was like, "Oh my gosh, she's speaking in tongues!" Like, made a big deal about it. And of course, my church was notified, and then I got my certificate. but,
Hey.
but,
She got the certificate, everybody. She got it.
but ultimately, I remember having one of my friends come up to me at church camp and be like, I've never heard anyone speak in tongues like you before. And then I was just like, oh, okay, like, I don't know what that means. Like, thanks.
Mhm.
Like, I really didn't know if it was a flattering comment or like a mean comment. I just was like, thanks.
Mm.
Like, I don't,
I
I
feel
don't
so
know if it's good to be different,
special.
but cool.
Mhm.
Um,
Makes me
and then when I
popular.
was back at church, I
Uh-huh.
remember speaking in tongues again, and it was like one of the women that kind of helped out with the youth group, but she wasn't like necessarily like the youth group leader or anything. Um,
Mhm.
she actually pulled me aside one day and she's like, I've only heard one other person speak in tongues like you before. And I was just like, what? So interesting. Okay. And so that was like the second person. But I never really put any gravity
Mhm.
to it because at the time, like speaking in tongues with my school friends was like this weird thing. Like they would not have understood.
Mhm.
And like at the church, it was a
Mhm.
different thing. And
Yeah.
so then that night, I was telling Jeremy about you doing light language in the live call and just basically what I just said. And he was like, you need to text her or message her or something. Like, you need to tell her that you have that sort of connection with her. And so I did. Like, the next day, I remember I was so nervous because I was like, she's not going to think I'm weird, but also at the same time, it's such a different thing to
Mm.
connect it to. I can't believe that that's the word I'm using, but hey. Um,
Hey, Cosmic Connect too.
so I like it told you and you were awesome about it. And so after all these different conversations, here we are.
Are you
But light
kidding me?
language
Like,
was a big thing that kind of came up.
it's how we really started talking. And yes, like I love how you're like, and you were awesome about it. Like I was nervous. It's like I don't know. It's just, it was so cool when you reached out after that because, from my perspective, it's like I'm doing this shit that is like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird to a lot of people. It's not understood. It is not known by many people that this shit exists, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's more recently that I have like truly unlocked my own capability of doing this. So it's new to me as well. But I'm very like excited about it, and like especially at that point I think it was yeah, like it was just cool when you reached out and you were like, I recognize what you're doing, and that like woke up something within me like that made me feel so happy and like emotional and like many things. It's like I don't know, it's almost like a different way of somebody reaching out to you and saying like, hey, like I understand like your soul, like I recognize your soul, and I have that in mind as well. And it's
It's
like,
like
you
when a
know.
family member like hugs you and is like, I love you.
Mhm.
Like it just
Mhm.
like I didn't really think about the impact of just reaching out what that would be do. So that's makes me like a little emo right now to think that I kind of gave
Mhm.
you that acceptance of like what you're doing is cool and like I hear
Mhm.
you, I see you, like keep doing it. Like
Yes.
I love to be
Yes.
people's cheerleader, so like I'm glad that that was what that was for you because it was really just like this like any other person if you wouldn't have done light language, if you would have just talked about it, I probably maybe I wouldn't have ever actually reached out.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because I wouldn't have had that like realization of
Yes.
like I know this thing, but I know it by a different name.
Mhm. And many people do. Many people, when they first hear light language, and there again, there are many different kinds, and some may resonate more with certain people than other people, but I think most people who get this like sense of like familiarity when they hear light language for the first time, it really does like wake up something within you. And it's like, that's how I first felt with like the starseed stuff. That's how I first felt with just learning different layers of these identities that we were talking about within myself that are deeper identities than I grew up understanding about myself. It's just there's something that really resonates, and like when people hear it, sometimes it activates it in themselves, and they'll just remember things from past lives. They'll just have these like oof. But it's exactly what I was talking about before. It's like it's felt. Like you can't just say light language and people have the activation, but you experience it. Has to be experienced. You experience light language and it's like, whoa, like wait, that's actually something legit. Like
Yeah.
I feel that. And it's very profound. I think it's just very profound how it reaches people and how people understand that, and just the capabilities that it has.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool connection that we have because
Mhm.
it's such a big thing for you and it used to be such a big thing for me. Like Not that it
Mhm.
can't ever be a big thing for me again, but it was such,
Yes.
like, if you would have met me at like 15, I would have been like,
Mhm.
maybe even a little younger, maybe like 13 or 14. I would have been like, yeah, I'll show you. Like, I'll do it right now.
Oh my
Like, I
gosh,
don't
that's
think
so
I could
cool.
actually tap into it right now. Like, I think I
So,
have made some barriers that I haven't quite figured out what they were,
mhm.
to
Mhm.
take them back down again. So I'm working on that.
I'm very
But
curious. I'm very interested, and yeah, like I feel like the first step is just like you have that weird sense of familiarity, and it just starts to unlock, I think, different possibilities in your like understanding of self, and like that's really cool. And so, like, how, I guess, was it like was it very definitive of like when you stopped doing light language? Did it fade out over time? Did you intentionally say like no more light language? I mean, you didn't call it light language, but I'm gonna say,
yeah,
speaking
yeah,
in tongues and all that. Like, yeah,
yeah.
how did that whole thing
Of
kind of
course, it
come
was some
to
trauma.
Warning. There is a story that's going to follow this that sexual assault does come up. It was very briefly discussed. It did not go into detail, but trigger warning.
I had I was about 14 and I dated a,
be?
I'm not even gonna say boy, a young man.
Hmm.
He was 18.
Mhm.
And I was very devout to my beliefs at the time. I mean, I was 14,
Mhm.
so even if I wasn't part of my language, even if I wasn't fucking devout to my belief systems, like I would not have done
Yeah.
that anyways because it's just not in my character. But
Hmm.
he tried to, force the things that an 18-year-old boy would, and I didn't want to because I wanted to be a virgin till marriage, and that didn't happen, but that's
Mhm.
fine. Not a story. But I
Hmm.
refused, and he broke up with me. And his reasoning for breaking up with me was I need to work on my walk with God. Mm,
Ugh.
mm,
Ugh.
okay. I need to work on
Ugh.
my walk with God. Okay.
Oh my
Um,
god.
and then he had
You
the
better he
audacity to
better
do
work
that
on
on
walking
like,
the fuck away from me, because I was
yeah,
sorry.
dude,
I hold myself back.
it like as an adult that's past 18 now, I would literally hang that boy up by his damn toes if he ever said that to my daughter. Like,
Mm,
legitimately, like, you're
mm.
done. um,
You're done. You're done. Like, don't let
but
me
he
see you
broke,
ever, my guy. Ugh.
yeah, for real. But he broke up with me on like a Friday or a Saturday, and Sunday is literally all church. Like, so I have
Mhm.
to wake up after crying all night long, puffy face. We don't wear makeup, and I have to go to church. So put on my big girl panties on, and I did my hair, and I went to church, and I tried to look my
Mhm.
best because we were like the icon couple, and I knew that it was gonna be everyone was gonna know before I even got to the doors that this happened.
Mhm.
And he walks into the church and walks right up to my parents, has pleasantries with them, talks to them, walks past, doesn't say a damn thing to me. And I decided at that point, my mom, it was like a special service because my mom at the time stopped going to church. So this was not a
Mhm.
normal thing for her to even be at the church. So it was
Mhm.
like such a slap in the face. And I decided right then and there
Mhm.
that was going to be my last service. And so I walked up to my pastor, who I was very close to. He was a wonderful
Mhm.
man, or I think he's still alive. So he's a wonderful man.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I just told him, like, I don't think I can come to this church anymore. And he asked
Mhm.
me why, because, up until that point, I was this very religious, loyal patron of his church.
Mhm.
And I told him what happened, and he was mortified. Like, he was just like, that is not acceptable. That should not be how you be treated. But I respect your decision, and I will not, stand in your way, but just know that the door is always open for you. You're always welcome here. I love you. Like, and I was like, I love you too. And we hugged, and fast forward
Oh.
to little side tangent just so that ends on a good note. I did end up going back there when I was in foster care, and I had to go to a church. I didn't want to go to their Mormon church. I ended up going back there
Mhm.
pregnant and had a great time. And that boy had gone and left the church and whatever. So
So you
everybody
got
that
to
I was in
reconnect with
relationship
your
with
favorite
was
pastor.
fine.
That makes me happy. I'm honestly, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you told him what happened.
Yeah.
Like that made me
Again,
so like,
fight for my principles. Circle
yes,
back.
like you speak the fuck up. Like I
Um,
I am honestly like I admire that very deeply in you, and like
the thing that
like
was,
I just know that that takes a lot. Like that can take so much, like to just even say that. You know what I mean?
yeah, and you know what's weird is I look back at those moments and I'm like, where did I get the balls? Like, how did I? Like, I get impressed by myself sometimes, but also I had the weirdest, like, I could do that, but like, I try to tell my mom that and I was denied. Oh, John wouldn't
mm,
do that. And I didn't stand my ground
mm,
with her. I just let her think whatever she wanted to think, but still went and stood
yeah.
my ground with my pastor. Like, so
Mhm.
there's definitely
Mm.
things where I, maybe was a people pleaser and just tried to not do anything or say anything and just let it happen. But there's definitely times where it felt like if there were a core cardinal wrong, like this isn't right. Like
Mhm.
I definitely was like, this isn't right. Someone pay attention.
Mhm. Yes.
But
Yes.
I think that trauma really like I stopped going to church. I really just
Mhm.
shut that off
Mhm.
and I never really tapped
Mhm.
back into that. Even when I went back to the church, I never spoke in tongues when I was there. I went to church to be there. I was, feeling the music,
Mhm.
loving the vibes, but like
Yes.
never spoke in tongues when I was there. So
Wow.
that's the only thing I can think of that was really like I remember doing it before that, and I don't remember doing it much
Mhm.
after that.
It makes sense. You had a conscious like separation from that like entire aspect of your life, and
Hmm.
it was due to a fucked up circumstance. Like I think.
I
Yeah.
guess I
Like
should
I
have
could.
done trigger warning. I didn't really get into details there,
We can
so
add a trigger warning. I think we can maybe edit that in or something if you want to. But
yeah.
I'm
But
like I love it. I love that we are talking about all these things. Like
I'm very thankful that it wasn't an aggressive situation. I was very safe.
mhm
He never like
mhm
pushed it to a point that I mean he pushed the envelope, but it was never like
yeah,
dangerous.
it wasn't
So
super
I'm
violent or anything.
yeah,
Mhm
yeah. So I'm thankful that I don't have that to say about that situation, but it was very triggering as a 14-year-old girl to
yeah.
basically just be told you're not good enough because you're not gonna put out. Like, it just
Yes,
was
that's some
bizarre.
bullshit.
Uh-huh.
That's like a lot of bullshit. That's a lot of bullshit. Yeah, and like yo, again, I can only say like good on you for saying that. And honestly, like I'm really glad that the pastor like heard you out and was like, I respect your decision, and like because I'm sure there's a lot of pastors out there who would not, who
Yeah,
would just,
totally.
you know what I mean. And like unfortunately, again, like, and this is not at all the church that I grew up in. Like I generally had very good vibes from a lot of the like people from the church that like my parents would go to, but like being connected to that community, it's like you just know you meet a bunch of different people who are have their experiences and know this and know that, and like I just know there's a lot of very sexist shit that happens in a lot of churches with a lot of
Yeah.
situations like that, and like so again it's just like I'm like, oh, okay. I almost like had to like when you were
Yeah,
telling the story, it's like I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, oh my, okay, that worked out. It,
yeah.
not a
Yeah,
great
I will
situation, but
say,
like that did work out like much
yeah,
better than
I
I
will
know it
say
could.
though that just
Mhm.
as many anecdotal, really fucked up situations there is always
Mhm.
anecdotal good situations too. And I really
Mhm.
do feel like that's a big one
Absolutely.
for me. Like when I hear
Mhm.
about fucked up priests or
Mhm.
pastors, I'm just like,
Mhm.
yes, but there are so many
So many
fantastic
good
ones out
ones.
there. Don't
Yes.
let a few duds
Yes.
ruin it for everyone else. Because I've met
Mhm.
some terrific
Mhm.
pastors that, while we might not agree on everything, they are tremendous human beings and to have them a part of your life, you should consider yourself very lucky.
Absolutely. And I think that, yeah, because there's literally so many people who just truly are devoting their lives to God and to
Yeah.
being the best person they could be from like within that framework. And I like that's beautiful. And there's just so much, many pastors take on many roles too. It's like it's a tough job. It really is a tough job.
Yeah, and my pastor was
And
a 100% full-time pastor, so that was his job.
mhm.
He didn't
Mhm.
he did have a part-time job, but that was his job. But this is going to be a two-part episode. We are literally going to record another one right after
Mhm.
this. So you are
Mhm.
not going to be left off on some of these topics. Frenchie's going to do light language in the next episode. So please stay tuned. Catch us on cosmicconnect.FrenchieBlue on Instagram. Our LinkedIn is on there.
Linktree, I think.
I'm at blue.river. What's your personal?
Frenchie V, Frenchie XVII.
Check us there. We're going to do a little break and we will be back with the second episode, but you won't know that. Peace. Mwah. Love you all.
Peace. Mwah.